No, I shouted. I knew from the little camping I'd done that we probably didn't have much chance out here. But if we started walking at night, we wouldn't have any chance at all. Robbie opened the car door. I'm going, he said stubbornly. I'm just going to follow these tire tracks until I get back to the highway. And once I'm there, someone will give me a ride home. But we can't. Robbie cut me off. Stop it. Stop telling me what I can't do. You just don't want me to have a good idea. You just don't want me to be the one who saved us. Robbie got out of the car and started to walk. I knew it would be pitch black, and he would be completely lost if I let him go. So I forced myself out of the car after him. Stop, I called. You can go after we talk, but at least listen. Robbie began to run from the car. No, I'm not listening again. I watched him go a few feet and then took off after him. Robbie, come on, cut it out, I called. But that only seemed to spur him on. It was so hot I could hardly breathe. Robbie, stop. I won't come after you, I promise. Just stop where you are and listen to me. Then, if you want to go, you can. I was shouting at him. He stopped running. Okay, he shouted back, but you stay right there. Tell me from where you are. I took a deep breath and put my hands to my mouth to make my voice louder. Then I shouted, Look at your watch. It's already 6 o'clock. How could we get out of here before it gets dark? We don't even have a flashlight. We'd be miles from the car and all alone with whatever animals are out here. If you just wait until morning, we'll start walking out as soon as it gets light. My words tumbled out. In the morning, we'll have plenty of light, and it won't even be so hot yet. What do you think? You want to run into some animal when it's totally dark and you can't even see what it is? For a second, there was silence. At least Robbie hadn't turned to keep walking away. Then I saw him start back toward me. You're right, Robbie mumbled, coming back to the car. Guess I just didn't want to stay out here much. Sorry, I yelled. Forget it. I licked my parched lips. I'm real thirsty. Let's find the gulpers. We got back in the car and Robbie dove under the seat and pulled all 4 gulpers out one by one. He tried to smile. Good thing they came in these squeeze containers with caps. They're almost still full. I just wish they were still cold. Yeah, good thing Mom wanted to support literacy. At least we have them. I was trying hard to remember what I had learned in Scouts about desert survival. I thought they had said that a person needed about a gallon of liquid a day to survive. Well, we had that now, but what if our rescue took longer? Boy, this feels good, Robbie said, taking a drink. I put the gulper to my mouth and took a swig of the root beer. It burned all the way down my throat, but even though it was warm and sticky sweet, I'd never tasted anything better. I think I could have drunk the whole thing, but I made myself stop, and I pulled the container from Robbie, telling him that we had to make it last. Robbie looked at me, and he looked really weird. Scott, if I ask you something, do you promise just to tell and not to laugh? I smiled. I don't know why. Okay. Never mind. Come on, I promise, I said. Robbie moved around on the seat. I was just wondering if pee makes snakes come out in the desert. In spite of everything, I almost started to laugh, and then I realized that Robbie was serious. To tell the truth, I didn't remember any book saying anything about the subject, but I lied. You know, there was something in my book. It said that you could pee in the desert. Robbie was hanging on my every word intently, and at some other time, in some other place, this would have been a great trick to play on him. But in this awful place, I just wanted to make him feel better. You could pee in the desert, and it didn't make any animals come at all. Robbie looked at me. You sure? Positive, I said. Robbie smiled and got out of the car. I'll be right back. He took off. It was weird. I'd had to go so bad while I'd been tied up in the car. I guess it was just fear. Anyway, the urge was gone now. I looked at the sun. As hot as it was also clear that the sun had begun to set. I had camped out with the Scouts a couple of times, but Robbie had never slept outside. He had no idea how dark it could get, or what strange sounds the night made. I hoped Robbie wouldn't be too scared. Who was I kidding? I hoped I wouldn't be too scared. I wished with all my heart that some rescuers would magically appear and we could be back home. My thoughts were interrupted by Robbie returning. Boy, do I feel better. Now I'm hungry. I don't guess we've got much for dinner except the gulpers, huh? Then his face lit up. Hey, what about the lifesavers Mom took away from us because we were fighting over who got the red ones? I took a package of them out of the glove compartment. Good thing we fought, huh? I opened the roll and Robbie and I stared at the lifesavers, trying to figure out how to make them last. We decided, since they were our least favorite, to eat all the green and orange ones for dinner and put the rest away to have something good for the next morning. It was sort of funny. Candy and soda pop had always sounded like a great dinner, but now that we had them, they didn't make such a super meal. At least the candy and drink helped my throat, which no longer felt so dry that I couldn't swallow. I sucked the final piece of my last lifesaver and leaned my head back against the seat. Robbie and I sat in silence. I looked at my watch. 10 minutes passed, and it felt like it must have been 10 hours. It was going to be a long night just sitting in that car. But then I thought about the kidnappers and remembered that we could have already been dead. So I told myself that it wasn't really so awful to sit there for one night. Still, it was so very quiet. I looked at Robbie and saw him staring out the window. He had his arms on the door and his face in his hands. He looked pretty down. Want to play 20 questions? Nah, maybe later, he said dejectedly. Suddenly I got an idea. Why hadn't I thought of it before? This would be great. Hey, watch this. A little music and a little cool air. What are you? Robbie started to say. Then I turned on the motor, snapped on the radio, and flipped on the air conditioning. Wow, how do you ever get that to work? I thought Robbie looked impressed, and I was pretty impressed with myself too. Music immediately filled the car, but only warm air blew from the vents. The music is great. It makes it seem, not so empty. But geez, it's still sure hot in here. Why doesn't the air blow cool? I wasn't really sure. I reasoned that just because the car was out of gas didn't mean that the battery wouldn't work, at least for a while. And if the battery worked, so did the radio. I guess the battery makes the radio run and air come out, but you need gas for the air to get cool. At least it will get cooler after the sun goes down. Yeah, Robbie took off his hat for a minute. Sweat had made his hair stick to his head. Let's change the station. Robbie punched a silver button on the radio. The music ended, and an announcer said, Here are the evening's headlines. Today in Phoenix, 2 young boys were kidnapped. Hey, that's us, Robbie cried. Shh, I want to hear. The announcer's voice continued. The boys' mother, Mrs. Janet Radcliffe, had just stopped for gas at the newly opened mini-mart on 32nd Street when a person or persons unknown stole her car. At this time, police have no suspects, nor do they know whether the purpose was to steal the car or the children. It was the car, Robbie broke in, and we know all about the suspects. Shh, I commanded. We have Mrs. Ratliff with us on the air, and she wants to talk to her son's abductors. There was silence for a minute, and then Mom's voice filled the car. Whoever you are who took my boys, please don't hurt them. Please let them go. They can't hurt you, and they mean the world to me. Mom sounded as if she was crying, and the announcer came back on. If you have any information about these boys, Mommy! Robbie half shouted the word. I snapped the radio off. I couldn't look at Robbie because I knew he was crying, and I didn't want to cry too. Hey, it's okay, bud. Tomorrow we'll be back with Mom, and everything will be okay. You heard the guy say that everyone was looking for us, didn't you? Yeah, I just wish they could find us tonight instead of tomorrow. I just hoped they could find us at all before it was too late. I looked out at the desert. It definitely was not a friendly place. It seemed to me that it was getting dark. It was getting dark outside awfully fast. I tried to tell myself that it was just that the sun had been so hot, and now it was going down. But there was a strange kind of shadowy calmness outside. Robbie must have felt it too, because I saw him squint toward the sky. You think there are lots of animals out here at night? Actually, I did. In social studies last year, we'd learned all about how it was too hot for most desert animals to be out in the day, so they came out at night. but I didn't know if I should tell Robbie that. Things were so weird. Ever since Robbie had been able to talk, I'd been waiting for him to treat me like an older brother who knew stuff. Now that he was finally doing it, I just wished there was someone older to take care of both of us out there. Well, are there lots of animals out here? Robbie asked again. Oh, some, but we'll be okay in the car. We'll have the windows up and the doors locked. Good thing you didn't just take off walking. I didn't know it was going to get dark so fast. Wow, look at all those black clouds. Where'd they come from? Let's turn on the radio again and see if they're talking about us. I ran one hand through my hair. Robbie, the battery won't last forever. We have to wait to turn the radio on. If we keep turning it on now, we won't have it later. Wind started blowing hard. Please, just for a second. I leaned over and turned on the radio. What could a few seconds hurt? After having squinted against the sun all day, it was strange to see everything through the haze of darkness. Music blared from the radio, so I switched the station to see if there was any news on. An announcer's voice said, repeating, there is a flash flood watch for the Eastern Valley Desert area. Do not travel in that area for the next 2 hours unless absolutely necessary. If you must be in that area, do not go near any desert washes. The first few drops of rain hit the windshield, and I turned the radio off before Robbie heard any more. Robbie looked at me. I knew what he wanted to ask, but I wasn't going to offer the answer because I knew it would scare him even more than whatever he could be thinking.